Okay, so I live about an hour from the tip of Point Reyes, but if you're leaving from the Golden Gate Bridge, that's 90 minutes of drive time. And I want to bring that up because I think it's best if you plan this trip as an all-day trip. And if you do this trip, I really urge you to start early. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the light coming up behind you is just so much nicer and more pleasant when you're out there at the point. And the other thing is kind of practical, and that is that on a busy day, there could be a fair amount of people. And when you go to some of these parking lots, they could be full. Now, that's not something that I ran into because I went really early. In fact, I went so early that I caught the sunrise one day. I caught the sunrise from the Chimney Rock trailhead. I actually hiked up the hill to the ridge where I was able to see out past the point and directly where the sun was coming up over San Francisco. If you don't want to hike to the top of the ridge, then do the Chimney Rock hike. It's a 2-mile round trip hike. It's pretty flat, and when you get out to the end, it's really beautiful. In addition to the Chimney Rock hike, there is the life-saving station, and it's a really interesting diversion to head down the hill and check it out. So I am here in front of a building that housed the U.S. Life-Saving Station. Now, this building was built in 1927, but the service started in 1890. There were so many shipwrecks in this area, so many people dying, that they put men out here in boat to help mariners who were in distress. It's hard to imagine this today, but the surfmen, the men who made up the crews of these life-saving rowboats, they patrolled these beaches day and night, rain, fog, wind, whatever the conditions. And when they saw someone in distress, they would scramble and they would get into these rowboats and they would try and get through these breakers to rescue the men and the women who were in danger on these ships. In 1915, the United States Life-Saving Service was combined with the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service to form the U.S. Coast Guard. And this new agency took over the Point Reyes station. In 1927, they moved it to its current location here. And when they moved to kind of these longer, heavier, motorized lifeboats, the size and weight of these new boats meant that they had to be launched using a pier and a marine railway that descended from the boathouse to the water. Now, I happened to get here really early, and I got lucky because Mike, one of the service techs here, he let me into this building, and I got to see where these guys slept and kind of where they hung out. I got to see one of the life-saving boats and some of the equipment. They're currently kind of sprucing this place up, and they're going to open to the public eventually, but it's not open yet. So what kind of blows my mind about this is when the service was started in 1890, it wasn't here in Drake's Bay, which is kind of protected and calm. It was actually on the other side at 10 Mile Beach, which has just a heinously kind of exposed coastline. So people died kind of getting these life-saving boats out through the breakers. It was a really dangerous duty. And I can't imagine the guys who kind of signed up for this, because in 1890, this was out here, and it's mostly foggy and mostly cold, so it was probably a pretty miserable existence. On the other hand, they were out here doing good. They were saving lives, and I think the saying that they had was, you always have to go out, but sometimes you don't come back. So after Chimney Rock, I suggest you head over to the Point Reyes Lighthouse. It is about a 25-mile drive, and you're going to be heading east to west through some absolutely beautiful farmland. And the thing that I had to wrap my head around is that these farms have been out here for
over 170 years. In fact, some of them were started right around the gold rush. And the reason was San Francisco was exploding in growth. And these pasture lands, they were perfect for dairy farms, cheese and butter and cream and milk. And where did that stuff go? Well, it went to San Francisco. They loaded it onto ships. They sailed it in through the Golden Gate and unloaded them down on the wharf. And those folks in San Francisco, they had fabulous West Marin dairy products.
So you would never know it by the day we're having out here today, but Point Reyes is the windiest place on the Pacific coast, and actually the second foggiest place on the North American continent. But this fog, especially during the summer months, well, it reduces visibility to literally hundreds, if not tens of feet at times. And the Point Reyes headlands, which juts 10 miles out to sea, it poses quite a threat to mariners. In fact, between 1849 and 1940, there were over 70 shipwrecks that we know about. The thing that blows me away about that statistic is for a lot of that time frame, the lighthouse was in operation. Each ship coming in or leaving San Francisco Bay, if they're heading north, they come by this point, and this point is a very dangerous place. Now, the lighthouse, it was built in 1870 and retired from service in 1975 when the U.S. Coast Guard installed an automated light. I got to talking to a ranger who was on site, and we nerded out a little bit about the actual lens that's there in the lighthouse. That lens is a first order Fresnel lens. It's a really sophisticated piece of glass, and the lens in this lighthouse, it was actually exhibited in the World's Fair in France in 1867. Then they took it down, they packaged it up, and they shipped it around the tip of South America to San Francisco. Before the Fresnel lens was developed, lighthouses used mirrors to reflect light out to sea, and the most effective of those lighthouses could be seen maybe 8 to 12 miles away. After this invention, the Fresnel lens, the brightest lighthouses could be seen all the way to the horizon now, about 24 or 26 miles away. And if you ever get to wondering what a lighthouse keeper did, well, here's a description I found on the National Park's website. Every evening, about a half hour before sunset, a keeper would walk down the 350 wooden stairs to this location, and they would light the oil lamps. Now, once this lamp was lit, the keeper then had to wind the clockwork mechanism, and that would lift a 170-pound weight up to a point in space. Then once that was up there, they would pull a lever and release it, and slowly the Earth's gravity would pull that weight down through a small trap door about 17 feet below. And as the weight went down and the clockwork spun around, the lens up top would turn so that the light appeared to flash every 5 seconds. In addition to winding the clockwork mechanism every 2 hours and 20 minutes throughout the night, the keeper had to keep the oil lamp wick trimmed so that the light would burn steadily and efficiently. That's how lighthouse keepers got the nickname Wickies.
So I really love this. It's such a cool analog world in here. And there are air compressors and a diesel engine and air horns, and this is an exhibit. But all of the stuff that is in here, these are the things that drove the lighthouse before we got to this age of automation.
Point Reyes has always been a dangerous place for mariners. I want to read this to you from a San Francisco Chronicle article written in 1887. I will link it down below. There is not, from Mexico to Oregon, a more forbidding or dangerous coastline than that extending from Point Reyes to Tamales Bay. It is made doubly dangerous by its proximity to the harbor of San Francisco, many a vessel having gone ashore under full sail, believing that it was headed for the Golden Gate. Okay, that is the most analog thing that I have done, and I can't tell you how long. When I walked into that space, that place like smelled like history and electronics. And the history of ship-to-shore radio out here, well, it's actually kind of an interesting story.
You've probably seen images of the cypress tree tunnel here, and while these Monterey cypress are pretty frickin' impressive, it's really what's at the end of the road that kind of piqued my interest. The Radio Corporation of America, or RCA, acquired this land and built the Art Deco building that houses the magic inside between 1929 and 1931. KPH Radio is a station that has been in operation for most of the 20th century. The call sign for the radio station, KPH, well, the K is what the FCC uses for radio stations that are located west of the Mississippi River. The PH, well, that's because this radio station was originally located in the Palace Hotel in San Francisco up until 1906. It was mainly used to provide ship-to-shore communications. They would send telegrams using Morse code, marine telex services using radio teletype. Their job was to communicate with ships out on the Pacific Ocean. There's no doubt in my mind that the KPH Maritime radio station played a large role in U.S. military operations during World War II and beyond, but I really couldn't find anything public on that. And there is a rumor that KPH was the first mainland station to hear of the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, but again, no information exists to back up that claim. And I really got to share with you guys, I was thrilled to go inside and to see this equipment and to just understand a little bit about what an important role KPH Maritime Radio played.
And I wasn't expecting that because I remember the radio towers out here because I grew up not so far away, and it was like a forest of radio towers. And when I came out today, it was like a ghost town. But when I walked through that door into that space, it was like walking back in time. Like I lucked out that this place was open today. It's open from noon to 4 on Saturdays. And there's so much history around ship-to-shore radio out here in Point Reyes. I wasn't sure I should do this because behind me is a cemetery, a very small cemetery, where the remains of 4, possibly 5 surfmen who gave their lives rescuing people who were in danger, mariners whose ships were in trouble. And these men answered the call of duty and did what they were supposed to do, and they gave their lives for that. And it's pretty clear not a lot of people come by this place, but maybe if you come out this way, maybe stop and say hello and give your thanks to these men who gave their lives over 130 years ago for the common good, just to try and help some people who were in danger.